Good morning and welcome. A quorum of 20 voters being present, this meeting will now come to order. I am Town Moderator Mary Wolf. I welcome all of you to Sherborn's 243rd Annual Town Meeting, and I thank and applaud all of you as well for showing your enthusiastic civic spirit by participating here today under the current difficult conditions. I'd also like to welcome those who are watching this live stream at home. I'm sure it is everyone's hope that next April we can all be together in person again. Before we begin, I would just like to take a minute to acknowledge the really extraordinary efforts of a few key people who have worked literally day and night to make this meeting happen in this location so that we can continue our ATM tradition in as safe an environment as possible. First, Town Clerk Jackie Morris, who has been juggling both this meeting and the two elections coming up in just about a week. No rest for the weary there, and I honestly don't know how she does it. Next, DPW Director Sean Colleen and Administrative Assistant and all-around helpful person Addie Mae Weiss. Both of whom have done an unbelievable job with the setup of this facility, turning an industrial garage into a venue of democracy. Also, Assistant Town Administrator Diane Moores and Jeannie Guthrie from the Select Board office, who have kept the wheels oiled and the train moving forward, and always with a no-problem attitude. And finally, Fire Chief Zach Ward, head of the town's COVID response team, who has quietly coordinated among various stakeholders to ensure that the end result here is one we can all be proud of. There are others who have also contributed to making this meeting happen, but to be honest, they are too numerous to mention because we are lucky to live in a wonderful town with wonderful neighbors and equally wonderful non-resident employees, all of whom contribute every day to making Sherborn the place we all love. So, Town Clerk Jacqueline Morris has confirmed that the warrant has been properly posted by the constable and that the tellers for this meeting have been properly sworn in. If you wish to leave the room for any reason, you must do so through the doors in the rear of the garage, and you must leave your voting card and ballot with one of the officials there. If you plan to return to the meeting, you must ask for a pass as you leave so that you can reclaim your ballot and voting card. Please set your cell phones to courtesy mode, and if you must take a call, please leave the room through the rear doors and as unobtrusively as possible. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, please keep in mind the importance of civility in all public discourse, particularly in a small town such as ours. Let us all assume in others the same good intentions we hold ourselves, and let us treat one another with the respect and goodwill with which we ourselves would like to be treated. A few introductions. The motions this morning will be initiated by two members of the Advisory Committee. Committee Chair Stephen Sy and Committee Member Steve Leahy, both seated here on the stage to my right, along with Select Board Chair Eric Johnson. Also here in the stage area and to my left are Town Council Darren Klein and Town Clerk Jacqueline Morris. Other members of town leadership are present in the audience, and I'm not sure exactly where they are, but you know who you are, and thank you for being here. The head teller is Janet Walsh. In an effort to keep town meeting as short as possible, neither the chair of the Select Board nor the advisory chair will be giving their traditional introductory comments. Rather, the Select Board reports to you through its message in the annual town report, and the advisory chair directs you to the introductory letter of the advisory report, which encapsulates the advisory committee's outlook on the town's current financial situation. Although many of you are aware of the parliamentary procedures we will follow during the meeting, I will review them for anyone new to town meeting and so that everyone understands the way that we will conduct this morning's business in a fair, orderly, and predictable manner that will allow all to be heard while ensuring that the meeting moves along without unnecessary delays. The agenda for this morning's town meeting is the warrant, which was prepared by the Board of Selectmen and is contained in the Advisory Committee's report to the town, which was mailed to each household and posted on the town's website. The deliberation we will conduct for each item on the warrant will be initiated by a motion from Advisory Chair Steve Sy, and that motion will be seconded by Advisory Committee member Steve Leahy. Discussion will follow and then a vote. This might be a good time to mention that, and I don't know where, here it is. When someone seated here on the stage area begins to speak, he or she will raise a flag for a few moments so that the camera operator will know whom to focus on. Because we are all masked, the visual clues of moving lips that the camera operator would normally look for are not available. Some articles will begin with a 5-minute presentation by the proponent of the article, who has previously filed a presentation request form with me. Following any formal presentations, we will open the floor to all others who wish to speak in discussion of the motion currently on the floor. And in the case of Articles 18, 19, 20, and 21, that general discussion will be preceded by the required report of the Planning Board. To speak on a motion, you must be recognized by the moderator. To be recognized, please raise your voting card, and when I recognize you, please go immediately to the microphone here in the center aisle. When you reach the microphone, please state your name and address immediately and begin your comment or question. Comments must be relevant to the motion at hand, and they must be limited to 2 minutes. Please be especially cognizant of the special conditions under which we are meeting this year, and please keep all comments as relevant and as brief as possible. We have a timekeeper here in front who will signal with a red card that the speaker is within 10 seconds of the time limit. I ask all speakers to be aware of that red card, and when you see it, please finish up what you are saying. I intend to be fair but firm this morning in enforcing time limits, and I ask you to be gracious and considerate of your neighbors by winding up before I would need to intervene. You have no doubt already noticed that we are not using electronic voting this year. We had fully intended to do so, but the governor's restrictions on visitors from out of state and quarantining made it impossible for us to make that happen. Voice votes present a health hazard. Therefore, you will vote this morning by raising the cards you received at check-in, with the moderator calling the result without a count, as she would call a voice vote. If the outcome of the card vote is unclear to me, I will ask the tellers to make a formal count. In the case where I call a vote without using the tellers, 7 voters may rise to request a formal count. For any vote, 50 voters may request that we use a paper ballot. All motions and amendments to motions must be submitted in writing to the town clerk. Forms for this purpose are available from Renee Montella. Renee, would you please raise your hand, somehow identify yourself? Where are you, Renee? Okay. She is through the doors right now. All right. No more than 2 amendments can be on the floor at the same time. A vote is taken on any amendments and then on the main motion. If more than 1 amendment is on the floor and the amendments include number of units or lengths of time, the largest number of units and the longest lengths of time will be considered first. This year, in the hope of limiting the duration of the meeting, we will be using consent calendars to save time by dispensing with separate motions, debate, and votes on articles that we predict from past experience are likely to pass either unanimously or nearly unanimously. For each consent calendar, there will be a single motion and a single vote, and there will be no debate on the single motion. However, if anyone wishes to comment on or has a question about one of the articles or line items contained in the consent calendar, you may call a hold on that article or line item when its title is read. And as we do with the reading of the omnibus budget, I will remove that article from the consent calendar and we will vote it separately following the vote on non-held articles or line items with the opportunity for full debate. In selecting articles for today's consent calendars, we have used the following criteria. The article is a routine article that has appeared regularly in the warrant in recent years, or it is a housekeeping type article that enables the town to conduct its business more efficiently. The meaning of the action advocated by advisory's recommendation is clearly explained in the advisory committee report, and it is reasonable to expect that the individual motions under this article would pass with little or no controversy. None of the articles in the consent calendar have an impact on the FY2021 omnibus budget. This morning we will use 3 consent calendars, one for Articles 1 through 8, one for Articles 11 through 14, and we will also treat the lines of the Capital Improvement Program, Article 10, as a consent calendar as well. Again, anyone wishing to discuss a particular article or a line item in a consent calendar simply needs to call a hold when I read the title of that article or line item, and I will set it aside for discussion after all non-held articles or line items are voted. A last procedural point, I will read only a title that is a summary of each article. The full text of each article appears in the advisory committee report, as does advisory's recommendation. So, to begin with the consent calendar for Articles 1 through 8. If I could have the first slide, please. Thank you. Articles 1 through 8 are being taken as a consent agenda. If a voter wishes to remove an article from the consent agenda, please call hold when I read the title of that article. Would the computer operator please show slides 2 through 9 as I read the titles of the corresponding articles in the consent agenda. Article 1, Town Reports. Article 2, FY2020 Supplemental. Article 3, OPEB Trust Fund. Article 4, Unclaimed Property. Article 5, Cemeteries. Article 6, Unpaid Bills. Article 7, Revolving Funds. Article 8, Stabilization Funds. Since I have heard...
Madam Moderator?
Yep, no holds. Yes, Mr. Saad.
I move that Articles 1 through 8 be considered together as consent calendar articles, where such articles are routine and typically approved without significant debate, and with such articles moved for favorable action as set forth in the advisory report, and with the following changes and additional information. Article 2, 2020 supplemental budget amounts with $319,391.59 to be transferred from free cash in the Treasury for the purpose of supplementing the following fiscal year 2020 budget lines, covering corresponding FY2020 deficits that remain. Snow and ice removal, $96,957.38. Police overtime, $112,434.21, and ambulance, $110,000. Article 5, cemeteries, that $19,400 be transferred from the Cemetery Enlargement Fund for the purposes set forth in the warrant. Article 6, unpaid bills, that $4,793.38 be transferred from free cash in the Treasury for the purpose of paying unpaid bills from fiscal year FY19 as follows. For the Department of Public Works, to pay to UniFirst in the amount of $107.53. Police Department to pay the Natick Animal Clinic in the amount of $2,922.07. The Police Department to pay the Natick Animal Clinic in the amount of $1,763.78. Article 7, Revolving Fund FY2020 expenditure limits. The Council on Aging Revolving Fund, $75,000. Board of Health Revolving Fund, $15,000. Recycling Revolving Fund, $860. Town Forest Revolving Fund, $35,000. Park and Recreation Revolving Fund, $250,000. Farm Pond Revolving Fund, $160,000. Ambulance Revolving Fund, $375,000. Elder Housing Revolving Fund, $281,390. Article 8, the General Stabilization Fund to transfer $80,000 from free cash to the General Stabilization Fund.
I second the motion.
Right. The article has been moved and seconded on a consent agenda. There is no discussion. So I would ask all in favor to raise your voting cards to say aye. All opposed? Raise your cards, please. I see no cards raised. Motion passes unanimously. Article 9, omnibus budget for the next fiscal year. Mr. Sy.
I will now be making a motion for the fiscal year 2021 omnibus budget. Following my motion and prior to any discussion or vote, the moderator will read the line items of the omnibus budget, which express the total appropriations for each department. As the moderator will explain further after my motion, if anyone wishes to discuss any line item, please indicate by stating loudly, "Hold." I move that the totals for each department represented by the numbered items appearing in the Advisory Committee's fiscal year 2021 Omnibus Budget Report to the town in the column headed Final FY21 Advisory Recommendation be called over by the moderator, and, if no objection is made, that such amounts be raised and appropriated for the purpose specified, except that, where a transfer is indicated by a numbered footnote, the specified amount shall be provided by such transfer. That the salaries for the various town officers, including those indicated by numbered footnotes, be fixed, effective retroactive to July 1, 2020, as specified in the omnibus budget that becomes effective pursuant to this motion, and that any item to which objection is made be separately considered and disposed of in accordance with the vote of the town.
I second the motion.
I will now read the totals for each department in the omnibus budget. As always, the full amounts for each component, salaries and expenses, are printed in the advisories report to the town. Anyone wishing to comment on or question any amount may call hold when I read that department's name and amount, and I will set that line aside. When the entire omnibus has been read, I will list any departments on which there has been a hold, and then we will vote all unheld items. Following that vote, we will address separately any held items. Select Board, $358,870. Legal Counsel, $80,000. Assessors, $138,105. Treasurer, $83,703. Collector, $141,562. Advisory, $3,823. Conservation Commission, $67,592. Planning Board, $51,060. Town Clerk, $134,790. Election and Registration, $37,581. Town Buildings, $304,700. Police, $2,049,758. Fire and Rescue, $454,081. Ambulance, $165,000. Inspectors, $96,337. Dover Sherborn Regional District Schools, $10,017,811. Tri-County Vocational, $33,392.
Mary, 892.
I'm sorry, $33,892. Sherborn Schools, $6,996,535. Norfolk Agricultural, $47,268. Department of Public Works, $1,073,253. Snow and Ice, $84,533. Street lighting, $26,000. Solid waste, $299,575. Recycling, $3,230. Cemeteries, $70,500. Board of Health, $148,063. Council on Aging, $162,037. Veterans, $6,490. Library, $513,873. Recreation, $15,000. Historical Commission, $1,300. General Insurance, $176,933. I'm sorry, okay, I'll just read the other one. Employee benefits, including OPEB and retirement, $3,050,645. Debt service, $1,399,116. And reserve account, $300,000. Yes, George. I'm sorry, that is,
It's on the first page, Mayor.
Finance Director Accounting.
Okay. Oh, I see, sorry. Finance Director and Accountant, $307,391. I apologize. So the held items are treasurer, collector, town clerk, Dover Sherborn Regional, Sherborn Schools, and that's it. Okay, the non-held items having been moved and seconded. All in favor, please raise your cards. All opposed? All right. Motion passes. Okay, now I will go through the held items. And if someone wishes to speak to one of those held items, please signal by raising your card. I will recognize you and then proceed immediately to the microphone and begin by identifying yourself. Treasurer, $83,703. Yes, Ms. Yon.
Libby Yan, 116 Maple Street, and my comments are apropos of the hold on this item, the treasurer's budget, the collector's budget, and the town clerk's budget. The originally proposed weekly hours included in the salary budgets for the town clerk, town collector, and town treasurer were reduced during the advisory committee public hearing, based solely on the intent to cut costs for fiscal year 2021. While the need to make town departments as cost-effective as possible is an ongoing goal, the minor reduction in hours for each of these three key departments did not adequately take into account the additional hours each area is working to function in this pandemic environment, and in the case of the collector, also does not reflect the added scope of work in that office, which has expanded from tax collection to now collecting almost all fees received by the town, such as building permits, farm pond stickers, and other programs. Each of these senior department heads submitted FY21 salary budgets with realistic hours required to support their functions based on decades of experience. Please support the proposal that the salary hours for the town clerk, the town collector, and town treasurer of FY21 budgets be funded to the full amount originally requested by each budget maker. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. Yan.
Charles Yan, Maple Street. Libby and I don't always agree, but I do agree with her on this one. My points are addressed to the same three items. A couple fundamental points. This request is not for a rate increase. It's for additional hours that are actually being worked. They come from three of our department heads that are the most respected, who've been careful with town money. And it is a request based on the actual number of hours being worked. This town, like every organization, needs to pay people for the work that they actually do. These jobs have changed significantly. There's been a significant increase in the tax collector's duties. None of these departments are represented by a union, and let's try and keep it that way. By my calculation, the request for the additional hours is a relatively modest total of $26,364 for all three items. So I would urge annual town meeting to support this. We need to pay our hardworking employees for the work they actually do. For those of us that go to town hall, often if there's only one or two cars in the parking lot, they belong to one of these three department heads. So I would urge annual town meeting to approve the request by these very well-respected department heads.
Are there any other comments, questions? Yes, Mr. Leahy.
I'm Steve Leahy, 12 Woodland Street. Just a couple comments. So while all the members here who are represented in this motion to change salary line items are putting in a lot of work, and they are dedicated workers who help this town immensely. The recommendation by advisory, the end recommendation, was to increase the amount of hours paid and the total salary paid for these roles over the course of the next 9 months, while requesting that the Select Board also authorize a study to get a fair compensation level for these three positions. The Select Board in the past couple of years has authorized studies to get most other positions in town to proper and commensurate levels of salary. For these three positions, the advisory committee had suggested in the very short term a moderate increase in salaries from where they had been, above and beyond the cost of living increase that had initially been suggested in our guidance. And such that for the next 9 months, while there's a small increase in pay for these next 9 months, a study be undertaken such that at next town meeting, a mere 9 months away, so long as this pandemic goes away, we can get these three workers who do an excellent job and go above and beyond oftentimes the proper pay.
Thank you. All right. So,
Mary, there's
oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson.
Robert Johnson, 272 Western Avenue. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay. I am in favor of the study that will come this coming year. However, I think in the interim, instead of reducing their hours, I think that we should keep their hours, and then in the spring, when we vote at the annual town meeting, we can decide at that time whether they need to be reduced or can be maintained. So I would encourage everyone to keep their salaries as is now and hear the report in 9 months. Thank you.
Ms. Marple. I love to say that.
Carol Marple, Village Way. I would like to ask how the Board of Selectmen voted on this request, please.
Sure. Would a member,
I can speak.
Mr. Johnson, right, there you are. Flag up there.
The Select Board voted 5-0-0 to support the budget as submitted by the departments.
Are there any other questions? Okay. No actual amendments having been offered. Mr. Sy, would you move? The treasurer, may I get a vote from people just for a minute here? If you would like to, and can I do this? Can I take all three at once, or must I address? Sure. Okay, so when we go to vote, this will be for all three of those departments. Okay, with the amounts.
Doesn't somebody need to offer an amendment?
If no one is offering a formal amendment, then you simply read the,
Wait a minute.
Yes,
somebody make a
Mr. Yan.
I know, I'm like, Mrs. Moderator, did somebody move to change the number? I don't want to.
Did somebody move to what?
Did somebody move the requested, somebody's gonna make a motion to change the numbers.
Nobody has. Maybe he's going to do it now. That was my
Yeah, we need
point.
the motion.
Madam Moderator,
Yes,
I'm sorry, I thought that my comments made it clear. The amendment that I'm offering is that we approve the request for hours as originally submitted by the town clerk, the tax collector, and the town treasurer.
all right.
And the dollar amount is, according to my calculations, is what I included in my statement.
Okay, have you filed a formal amendment with the town clerk?
It's not an amendment, we just need somebody to say what the amounts are.
Okay, so,
We need three separate numbers, though.
yes, could you give us the three separate numbers that you're advocating?
I only have them in total. My calculation was about 26,000. I'm assuming that the advisory committee can provide us that information.
Well, the voters need to know what they're voting for, the exact numbers. So if someone has those exact numbers and can provide them, all right. This is Finance Director Sharon McPherson.
Okay, so the exact numbers, to get the budgets back to what
If you
they...
can give me one for each and then the grand total,
Okay.
that would be great.
All right. Treasurer, 92,491. Collector,
No,
150,350.
just the salaries, if, that would be great. Because that's where the change is coming, I believe.
You had read the total. so
Okay, all right,
That's the way I
okay.
had calculated it. And then for the clerk,
Wait, you didn't finish the collector.
We didn't get the collector.
I'm sorry. The collector, 150,350. And the clerk, 143,578. And as Chuck Yon indicated, the total impact is 26,364.
361 or 364?
364.
Four, thanks. And what was the treasurer total again? Sorry.
It's okay. The treasurer total is 92,491.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
91, yes,
You're accepting those as incorporated in Chuck's motion.
okay. We are accepting those amounts as incorporated into Mr. Yan's motion. So, the motion has been made. The total is the total increase, $26,364. Is there a second? All right. All in favor, please raise your cards. All right. All opposed? All right. Motion passes. All right. Yes. I'm sorry. Ms. Hess?
Was the motion made to set the elected officials' salaries? Because I know there was a legal question about that.
Yes, that is contained in Mr. Sy's original motion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, all held items having been addressed.
The schools.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Yes. That would be Dover Sherborn Regional. Yes. Mrs. Contini.
Montini, 62 Mill Street. I am only questioning administration. Can I have an explanation of why that number has doubled?
Yes. Mr. Sy, why don't you explain that?
Here we go. The question is about the administration line of the Dover-Sherborn Regional School District, which has increased by a percentage of 54%. I spoke with Don Fattori, the business administrator for the region. The reason for that is essentially there's a placeholder because multiple school employees' contracts are up this year, and then also the transportation contract is also being negotiated this year. And so in anticipation of increases, they put a placeholder into the administration line because they didn't have the final numbers and the appropriate lines to distribute them into. So when the region does actually begin reporting fiscal year 21, after all of those contracts have been finalized, then those expenditures will actually get redistributed out to the appropriate lines within the budget.
Okay. All right, Sherborn Schools.
Madam Moderator, isn't Steve going to move that number?
Oh, okay.
Yes, Madam Moderator.
Yes.
So I move favorable action on the line item for the Dover-Sherborn Regional Assessment in the amount of $10,017,811, appearing in the Advisory Committee's fiscal year 2021 Omnibus Budget Report to the town in the column headed Final FY21 Advisory Recommendation, and that such amounts be raised and appropriated for the purpose specified.
Second?
I second the motion.
All right, all in favor? Please raise your cards. All right, all opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We voted all three together. We're going to vote the final after all the held articles are taken care of. Okay. Sherborn Schools. Mrs. Contini.
April Contini, 62 Mill Street. Can I have an explanation for the school committee negotiations number?
Yes. Mr. Sy.
I apologize, I actually don't have the further information on that one. I believe it's the same explanation as for the region, but I'm not actually sure if is there anybody that's from the Sherborn School Committee here that would be able to speak to that? But I'm pretty sure it is the same reason.
Okay, motion then, Mr. Sy.
Yes, so I move favorable action on the line item Sherborn Schools in the amount $6,996,535, appearing in the Advisory Committee's fiscal year 2021 Omnibus Budget Report to the town in the column headed Final FY21 Advisory Recommendation, and that such amounts be raised and appropriated for the purpose specified.
And I second the motion.
All right, all in favor, please raise your cards. All right, all opposed? Motion passes. And I believe that is all of the held items. So all of the held items having been addressed, I am asking for a motion on those held items that have been amended. Mr. Sy.
Madam Moderator,
Yes, Mr. Sy.
I move favorable action on all the held items that were previously amended in the amount so amended, and that such amounts be raised and appropriated for the purposes specified in the Advisory Committee's fiscal year 2021 Omnibus Budget Report.
And I second the motion.
All in favor, please raise your cards. All opposed, please raise your cards. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, moving on now to slide 11, the capital improvement plan. The line items in the capital improvement program are being taken as a consent agenda. If a voter wishes to remove a line from the consent agenda, please call hold when I read the title of that article. Let's keep this slide up here right now, and I would ask for a motion on the consent agenda from Mr. Sy. Oh, no, I'm going to read the article.
Yeah, I think you
Sorry.
read them first.
Right. This would be slide 12. Article 10, item A, portable radios for the fire department. Article 10, item B, town buildings and facilities. Article 10, item C1, equipment non-road work related. Article 10, item C2, road work, equipment road work related. Article 10, item C3, wheeled excavator. Article 10, item D, roadway management. Article 10, item E, stormwater compliance. Article 10, item F, Pine Hill Access Road engineering only. Article 10, item G, Pine Hill School improvements. All right, Mr. Sy.
Madam Moderator, I would like to note that items C1 and C2, Department of Public Works Equipment, are being withdrawn by the Department of Public Works Director to be reconsidered at a future date. An advisory will therefore be recommending no action on those two items. I move favorable action and that the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, be authorized to borrow for the following items and sums. Item A, portable radios for the fire department, $62,667. Item B, town buildings and facilities, repair and or renovation of town buildings, $312,730. Item C3, wheeled excavator for the Department of Public Works, $175,000. Item D, roadway management for the Department of Public Works, $350,000. Item E, stormwater MS4 compliance, consult and improvements for the Department of Public Works, $200,000. Item F, Pine Hill Access Road engineering only for the Department of Public Works, $80,000. Item G, Pine Hill School improvements for the Sherborn Schools Committee, $16,000. All for the purposes as set forth in the Advisory Committee Report Table, pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 7, Subsection 1, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore, and in accordance with MGL Chapter 44, Section 20, authorize any premium received by the town upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of the costs of insurance of such bonds or notes to be applied to the payment of costs approved hereunder, thereby reducing by a like amount the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs, provided, however, that this vote shall be expressly contingent upon approval by the voters at an election of a Proposition 2.5 so-called debt exclusion question pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 21C, subsection K, and further that no action be taken on items C1 and C2.
Second.
The items have been moved and seconded. All in favor, please raise your cards. Okay. All opposed, please raise your cards. All right. Motion passes.
Madam Moderator,
Yes, Mr. Clark.
declare a two-thirds majority.
Oh, right, yes. There were only 2 votes against, and so I am declaring that to be a 2/3 majority. Those Those do have to pass by 2/3.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, to the next consent agenda. Articles 11 through 14 are being taken as a consent agenda. If a voter wishes to remove an article from the consent agenda, please call a hold when I read the title of that article. And Jordan, if you would please show slides 22 through 25 as I read the titles corresponding below. Article 11, use of free cash. Article 12, apply prudent investor standard for library trusts. Article 13, tax-taking deed in lieu of foreclosure. And Article 14, accept MGL Chapter 59, Section 57A, repayment of tax bills. These are all majority items. Mr. Sy.
Madam Moderator, I move that Articles 11 through 14 be considered together as consent calendar articles, where such articles are likely to be approved without significant debate, and with such articles moved for favorable actions as written in the warrant, and with the following additional information. Article 11, that $100,000 from free cash in the Treasury be transferred to the OPEB Liability Trust Fund. Article 13, that the town vote to authorize the Select Board to accept a deed in lieu of foreclosure for the then current owners pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 60, Section 77C.
The
Second.
the items in the agenda have been moved and seconded. All in favor, please raise your cards. All opposed? All opposed? Were there any opposed? Or is that just, okay. Motion passes unanimously. Slide 26, please. Article 15, DPW, Fire and Police Surplus Equipment Revolving Fund. Mr. Sy.
Madam Moderator, advisory will be moving no action on Article 15. This article was not included on any early drafts of the warrant provided to the advisory committee, and therefore was not presented to or discussed by advisory prior to their public hearing. Since the revenues from equipment sales will continue to enter the general fund as they have in the past, there is no financial harm to the town in not considering this article for fiscal year 21, and we will be recommending that it be included for full consideration in our deliberations for the 2021 annual town meeting. I move that no action be taken.
I second the motion.
Madam Moderator.
Mr. Johnson.
Also note that the Select Board voted unanimously 5-0-0 to support this article.
Mr. Kleen.
Madam Moderator, Sean Killeen, Butler Street. We presented this article early on in the warrant stage, and although I didn't get to present it to the advisory, it was presented to the Select Board before the meetings got shut down. The purpose of, and typically we wouldn't have debate on reserve fund articles being created. Most of them were just created by several years ago at the advice of the previous finance director. This particular one, although doesn't have a financial impact, it's a mechanism for us to be able to utilize the funds for the surplus sales. And as luck would have it, we have a good example this week. The fire chief was awarded a grant for $150,000 for air packs. That's from the federal government. There's a match of $7,000. Obviously, he doesn't have $7,000 left in his budget to just spend towards that, but there's a fire truck that most people can probably see outside that is surplus. It's been on the auction since about the pandemic started, and it's sold. So there's $8,000 coming back to the town for that fire truck. With this reserve with the revolving fund passed, that money will go in, and he'll have the authority to spend that money as the grant rather than using reserve fund transfers, which he otherwise would have to ask for. So I'm going to ask that you vote against the vote of no action, and that we get another motion to take action on this.
All right, are there any other comments or questions? Okay, the item has been moved and seconded. All in favor of, remember, this is a negative motion. It is a motion for no action. So all in favor of the no action motion, please raise your cards. All opposed to the no action motion? Motion fails. Do I have an alternate motion?
Me again. I thought I already did this. I'd move that we take action on the article.
And
What's that?
favorable action. Not
Favorable
take
action, sorry.
Favorable. Is there a second? All right. All in favor of the motion for favorable action, please raise your cards. Okay. All opposed? All right, motion passes. Article 16. This would be slide 27, Jordan. Community choice aggregation. Mr. Sy.
Sorry. I move favorable action and that the town vote to authorize the select board to initiate a process to aggregate the electric load of citizens of the town independently or jointly with other municipalities, and to enter into such contracts upon such terms and conditions and for such time periods as the select board deems necessary or convenient to accomplish such aggregation, all in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 164, Section 134.
I second the motion.
All right, we have a presentation on this. Mr. Cunningham, is that you? It's hard to tell with the hat and the mask. All right, and we can have slide 28, please.
Okay, I'm Fred Cunningham, representing the Sherborn Energy Committee today. The Sherborn Energy Committee has proposed Article 16 to see if the town will authorize the select board to investigate and potentially offer community choice aggregation of electrical supply. As you'll see, this is about offering choice to Sherborn consumers of electricity, potentially lowering costs, and increasing the amount of renewable energy we use in town. Next slide, please. So what does this article actually do? It authorizes the select board to investigate community choice aggregation and, if appropriate, to enter into a contract. If it's deemed not advantageous to the town, there is no obligation to move forward. Very importantly, if community choice aggregation is adopted, consumers always have the choice to leave the CCA program altogether, to change options within the program, or to go out and find their own supplier without penalty at any time. State law does, and we've had questions about this, state law does mandate that CCA programs be opt-out rather than opt-in. And the reason for that is we want to aggregate the electrical usage of the entire community to enable a community to design and implement choice. There is no cost to the town. The town works with an aggregator, a broker, to structure CCA offerings, to get competitive bids, to promote the program if it's adopted, and to maintain the program over time. The supplier, the aggregation broker is paid by the electrical supplier, not the town. This article doesn't make any decisions on possible structure of a CCA or whether to enter into a contract at all. It simply allows us to investigate CCA as a program. Next slide, please. So why bother? What does the advantages of a CCA bring us? What it brings us is increased consumer choice in a number of areas. Greener power sources, potentially better rates, although prices cannot be guaranteed, and I'll talk about that in a moment. More price stability through longer-term contracted rates. And the billing, maintenance, customer service, everything that Eversource now does for you, they do as well. It simply changes the supplier of electricity, not the distribution by Eversource. So why can't savings be guaranteed? They can't be guaranteed because Eversource changes its rates every 6 months. And the contract for a CCA is usually longer than 6 months. It can be up to 3 years. So as a result, at some point within the contract, Eversource's basic service price may dip below the CCA price. However, in towns where enrollees have CCAs, they have found there is a cost advantage and they appreciate the price stability. Next slide, please. So what we're asking for is a yes vote to let the select board investigate and possibly implement community choice aggregations. It will increase our choices for electrical supply. There'll be ample citizen opportunity to comment, and it actually doesn't, the article that doesn't force us to do anything. It just simply gives us the opportunity. Over 140 towns of the 351 in Massachusetts, nearly half the state, have entered into CCA agreements, including some of our neighboring towns and towns of similar size. Why is that important? Because we can leverage the accumulated knowledge and processes that have already been vetted by 140 other towns. So we're not walking into something that is not tried and true. This is tried and true. So again, thank you. And this process will take up to 2 years if we approve it today to get through the entire process with the government programs. And the climate's not going to wait for us to act. So our sustainability coordinators are ready to start work on this project. Please, we ask you to vote yes on this article. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments? Yes. Peter?
Peter Black, 55 Maple Street. Just a question. We have an photoelectric generating system on our house, and we have credits with Eversource. If we go to CCA, are we going to lose those credits?
No, you will not. Net metering, credits, all of that work exactly the same and will be based on Eversource's basic service rate. So nothing really changes with photovoltaics.
Even if we change suppliers?
Even if you change suppliers, yes.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments?
Madam Moderator,
Yes.
the Select Board voted 5-0-0 to support this article.
Okay, thank you. And this will be a good time for me to mention that for future presenters here, if you can step away from but stay close to the mic, if there are questions, you'll be right there to answer them, so please do that. All right, this Article 16, Community Choice Aggregation, has been moved and seconded. All in favor, please raise your cards. All opposed, please raise yours. Okay, motion passes. Article 17, Affordable Housing Trust Bylaw. Mr. Sy.
Madam Moderator, I move favorable action and that the town vote to amend the general bylaws by adding a new Chapter 31 Sherborn Affordable Housing Trust Bylaw as printed in the warrant so as to establish the rules and regulations governing Sherborn's Affordable Housing Trust.
I second the motion.
And we have a single slide presentation on this.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Addie Mae Weiss with the Sherborn Housing Partnership. Last year, at an annual town meeting, we all approved establishing a housing trust. As the Housing Partnership and Planning Board and several other members in the community with experience got together to talk about what we wanted that housing trust to look like, there were concerns that we wanted to have additional oversight above and beyond what the state statute applied. And in doing so, there were 2 instances where we looked at the language and we inserted with select board approval. By doing this, because it's above what the state requirement is, this requires us to adopt the entire language as a new Chapter 31 bylaw. So that is all that, even though there's multiple pages in the advisory book, all that we are asking is that we agree and to adopt this additional oversight for Sherborn's Affordable Housing Trust.
Are there any questions or comments? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'm Kitty Sturgis, 38 Hunting Lane. I have a question. Does the new language added to this new bylaw, Chapter 31, allow the committee to recommend to the Sherborn Select Board the annexing of the Sherborn Elder Housing Woodhaven property without further approval of the town meeting?
I'm sorry, Kitty, would it allow for the Sherborn Select Board to do one more time?
Let's see.
Kitty, I think if you just tip the mic a little bit down toward you.
I was trying to save finger marks for this gentleman over here. To allow the committee to recommend to the Sherborn Select Board the annexing of the Sherborn Elder Housing Woodhaven property without further approval of the town meeting.
Which word? Be advocating for? Is that what?
Could the partnership recommend to the Select Board the annexing of the Sherborn Elder Housing Woodhaven property without approval of town meeting?
I don't, yeah, actually, this is probably a better question for town council.
Darren Klein, town council. No, this is
Darren, I don't think this mic is on. Go ahead.
Can you move the mic?
That's better. That's beyond the scope of this bylaw. This is an affordable house trust bylaw. It has to do with the trust, but it doesn't give them the authority to annex the property.
So what you're telling me is that in the next town meeting, we would have to provide further additions to this partnership, that they couldn't annex property going from one town board to their committee without town meeting. I would like to see town meeting approval.
This is regarding the trust, not the partnership. And it simply was, as we established a year ago, the town does not have any mechanism for retaining funds specifically to be used for affordable housing. So we established that Sherborn would support having a housing trust to retain funds either given as in gifts or payments in lieu for other real estate projects. But this does not, it is simply a financial mechanism, and it is not a partnership. It's separate.
Agree. I think your question is beyond the scope, and the issue you're talking about is beyond the scope of this proposed bylaw change.
Okay, but I would hate to see the lands going from one department to another department without approval of town meeting.
Again, as very well said, that issue is not covered by this bylaw.
Okay, I appreciate your answering it. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other comments or questions? Seeing none, the motion has been moved and seconded. All in favor, please raise your cards. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
There was one opposed.
Was there? I'm sorry, could the opposing? Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Article 18. Remove Section 4.9 of the zoning bylaw, temporary moratorium on marijuana establishments. This requires a 2/3 vote.
Madam Moderator,
Mr. Sy.
I move favorable action and that the town vote to delete Section 4.9 of the zoning bylaws, temporary moratorium on marijuana establishments, in its entirety.
I second the motion.
Motion has been moved and seconded. This is a planning board article, and so we'll have a report now from Planning Board Chair John Higley.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. The Planning Board held a public hearing on this article jointly with the Housing Partnership, wrong one. The article simply removes the temporary moratorium on marijuana establishments. The moratorium has expired, and a permanent prohibition on the marijuana establishments not medically related is now already in place. The Planning Board recommends held a hearing and unanimously supports this article.
Okay. Are there any comments from voters on this article? Questions? Okay, the article has been moved and seconded. All in favor, please raise your cards. Okay. All opposed? I see no opposed. The motion passes unanimously. Article 19, amend Section 1.4.6 of the zoning bylaw, findings. Mr. Sy.
Madam Moderator, I move favorable action and that the town vote to amend Section 1.4.6 of the zoning bylaw as printed in the warrant for the purpose of streamlining the approval process for certain types of changes, alterations, or expansions, all as further described in the warrant.
I second the motion.
Planning Board report.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. This is John Higley, Chairman of the Planning Board. The Planning Board held a hearing and voted unanimously in support of this article.
Are there any other comments or questions? All right, this is also a 2/3 vote. All in favor, please raise your cards. All right. All opposed? All right, the motion passes unanimously. Article 20, amend the zoning bylaws, Section 4.5, open space subdivision bylaw.
Madam Moderator,
Mr. Sy.
I move favorable action and that the town vote to amend the zoning bylaws by deleting Section 4.5, open space special permit, in its entirety and replacing it with a new Section 4.5, open space residential subdivision, as printed in the warrant, with the following additional sentence being added to the end of Section 4.5.4a. An open space subdivision shall have no more residential units than the number of units that would be allowed in a conventional subdivision on the parcel of land that is the subject of the application, documented by a conventional subdivision general layout as defined in the Planning Board rules and regulations submitted by the applicant.
I second the motion.
Ms. Neutra, are you going to give the Planning Board report or simply the presentation? You are a member of the Planning Board, so.
Right, I can do both.
That would be great.
This is Marion Neutra, 25 Prospect Street, member of the Planning Board. The Planning Board voted unanimously 5-0 in favor of this bylaw.
So,
Madam Moderator?
yes. Yeah.
The Select Board voted 4 in favor, 1 opposed to support the bylaw as proposed, and then 4 in favor and 1 abstain with the amendment.
Okay. Presentation, Marion?
All right. This bylaw is in response, if we could, I can do this
This would
myself.
be slide 37.
Thanks. This bylaw is in response to the recent uptick in housing demand in Boston. Sherborn is one of the few towns left in the Boston Metro West area that still has large areas of private land, you can see them in white here on the map, that could be developed as subdivisions. Now, if many of these were developed as conventional subdivisions, consuming the entire parcel, it would dramatically change the character of the town. So this bylaw is basically to fulfill one of our master plan goals, to guide housing development, to preserve our rural character and environmental resources. We cannot prevent subdivision development. Massachusetts state laws allow property owners and developers to build subdivisions wherever the land is large enough to accommodate a new road. And towns must provide a by right path to subdivision development. But towns can decide what kind of subdivision is by right, and that's what we want to do here. Our current bylaw is out of date. It states that it assumes that conventional subdivisions are allowed by right. We have an outdated open space subdivision that requires a special permit. Our proposed change here is open space subdivisions will be the preferred alternative and allowed by right. Conventional subdivisions are still possible by special permit when the open space design is not better for the environment. So here are the highlights. At least 60% of any subdivision property must be permanently preserved as open space. And so the developer can't just take all the wetlands and call them open space. At least half of the open space has to be uplands. 40% of the property would be left for houses, roads, driveways, and the number of units are determined by a formula that takes into account the environmental features of the land. Only single-family homes would be required unless there's a special permit for duplexes, and duplexes would have to resemble single-family homes in their design. Importantly, no more units would be allowed than in a conventional subdivision. And this was assumed by the formula, but actually we've added an amendment to make sure that this is not a loophole that could be exploited. Subdivision layout would be for environmental protection and for the best use of the land as open space or development. So the developed areas would be placed to protect groundwater resources and open space and to protect environmental benefits. And Board of Health and Concom regulations would apply in any case. To make this possible, lot size and arrangement has to be flexible. It would be reduced, but still with restrictions. And internal subdivision roads would have to have reduced frontage and setbacks. But it protects scenic viewscapes by making increased setbacks at existing roads and no change in frontage requirement on existing roads. Abutters would be protected by greater setbacks from houses and from lot lines. Now, the bylaws in general don't cover everything, only the uses of the land, housing types, and various dimensions. There are tremendous numbers of controls in the planning board rules and regulations, including the process for submission and approval. If we look at a potential subdivision that could have been an open space subdivision, this subdivision exists in Sherborn. You can see that the entire parcel is consumed by lots. In an open space design, it would also include 60% of open space for trails, bike paths, and general enjoyment. And the lots here are smaller, but not that small. They would be just under an acre, which is kind of like the Ivy Lane neighborhood.
You're getting close here, Marion.
Right. So the advantages are tremendous, both for the developer, because costs are less. For the buyer, they have access to open space. Resale value has been shown by many studies to be maintained in these subdivisions or even better than conventional. And for the town, there is probably no loss to tax revenue. In fact, studies show that the gain is more likely. Thank you.
Thank you, Marion. Are there any comments or questions? Yes.
Mason Hill Lane. I think allowing open space subdivisions by this policy is a really good idea. The bylaw as it's written, in addition to creating that opportunity, also prevents subdivisions in the historical manner and makes those subdivisions subject to a special permit. I think that making such a big change all at once is probably not such a good idea. And my suggestion is that the approval not required rules for conventional subdivisions not change. So I propose that this be amended, section 4.5.3, by removing subsection C, which is the requirement to use special permits for other subdivisions, and renumbering section D to be section C. The motion incorporates, essentially by reference, the possibility that any other subdivisions actions in the town bylaw be subjected to this special permit rule. And I think that incorporation is a little bit improper, that if you want to change the other bylaw, that you should find the locations and write it properly on those sections. By removing this subsection, that problem is also cured, because that is the only thing that would influence other references.
Have you filed a formal amendment on this? Okay, to the clerk? The clerk. Are you going to offer another amendment, Robert, or comment on the amendment? Okay, thanks.
I thoroughly agree, Robert Johnson, 272 Western Avenue. I thoroughly agree with what he has said. However, there is one other place where the proposed bylaw would need to be amended, and that is in section 4.5.1.b, by replacing the wording "a preferred alternative" with the wording "an alternative," and by deleting section 4.5.3.c. So,
okay, have you got a formal?
Yes.
Yes. So we have only 2 amendments can be on the floor at the same time. So I would ask, since Mr. Johnson is amending Mr. Newman's amendment. All right, Mr. Newman? Okay. All right, and so, yeah. And can I have, so I can read? Oh, well, okay. Okay. So the current amendment would be moving the concept of allowing open space subdivisions. I'm sorry, where is your?
4.54.
Shall I read it again?
Yes. Mr. Newman, I don't see an actual motion here.
First line, black.
Okay. Mr. Newman moves to amend Section 4.5.3 by removing Section C and renumbering Section D to be Section C, with Mr. Johnson's friendly amendment to replace in Section 4.5.1b by replacing the wording "a preferred alternative" with the wording "an alternative," and by deleting Section 4.5.3c. Could I have, is there a second for this? All right. Moved and seconded. So a discussion now. Ms. Neutra.
Yes, I'd like to address those amendments. They have been suggested before, and we have studied them very carefully. Basically, the amendment would make the amendment would leave it up to the developer. A developer would have the right to make a conventional subdivision and use up the entire parcel without any special permit from the planning board, or to make an open space subdivision. However, we really believe that for the future of Sherborn, conventional subdivisions that use the entire parcel, if left up to the developer, is not good for the town. That's why we are imposing our preference as in this bylaw. We're not ruling out conventional subdivisions. If a parcel is shown to be better for a conventional subdivision environmentally, then we will approve a conventional subdivision. In fact, the bylaw requires us to approve a conventional subdivision if that design is shown to be better for the environment. Usually, we believe it will be the open space design is preferred. In fact, these have been around for the last 20 years. More and more towns are adopting this sort of subdivision because in the long run, now that we understand the effects of removing open space or destroying forests for development, it makes more sense, in our view, to express our preference for preservation of at least part of the property as open space.
Mr. Johnson.
I'd like to make just a small correction to what she said. She said that no special permit would be required under the proposed bylaw 4.5.3 subsection C. It specifically says may be approved if the applicant, the requirements of this bylaw by a special permit. So indeed, a special permit would be required if a developer were to desire to make a conventional subdivision.
Yes, that's correct. A special permit would be required, but the planning board issues special permits all the time for many things. And certainly if a design is better for the environment than if a conventional design is better for the environment than an open space design, we would readily, in fact, we're required to give a special permit for that.
Robert?
Okay. This amendment will make conventional subdivisions equal to the proposed cluster subdivisions. First, on 21 of the 23 articles that the advisory committee voted unanimously. However, on this article, the vote was 5-4 and 3 against, a close vote. I hope that you have read the minority report on pages 29 and 30 of the advisory committee report. It brings up important questions. Second, Whether this amendment or article passes or fails will have no effect on me or my property. I am proposing this amendment for you and your neighbors. Third, I am not opposed to cluster zoning. What I am against is taking away the value of your or your neighbor's property. In most cases, making a cluster development will cost more than a conventional development. The greater the development cost, the less a developer can afford to pay for your or your neighbor's property. If you have been counting on the value of your property for your retirement or any other purpose, this is going to hurt you. That is not right. That is not fair. Please vote for this amendment to save the value of your and your neighbor's property. Thank you.
Yes.
At Vitale Mill Street. So over the course of the last year, I've had the opportunity as a Board of Health member to see Marion come to us countless times on meetings with nearly empty rooms, talking about very granular details, welcoming feedback, and seeking guidance on how to make this the best possible bylaw to support our town. I think it's clear that there are lots of opinions. I think the question we have to ask ourselves is, do we want to have a voice in what development looks like? If the answer is that yes, we should look to ourselves and say, what have we decided before about what our master plan is, what our community should look like? That will have a series of steps that bring difficult choices that should fall back to that central set of values. If our value is open space, we need to do all the steps along the way. You can't say, I'm big on the idea, but not the hard follow through. And I would encourage us to say, and to trust our boards who've spent time and energy to work on this, reach your own conclusions. It's clear this will not be one of the unanimous votes, but avail yourselves of those nearly empty meetings and all the points up to now to help make us better, and then stand by the values we expressed as a community. Thank you.
I saw someone else's hand up before. Now, John?
Thank you. John Higley, 14 Saddlebrook Road, Chairman of the Planning Board. A couple of things. This is not cluster development. This is open space. It puts houses closer together. It's denser, but it's not cluster. And it costs less to build a shorter road. If the amount of pavement and road width and length is reduced, it reduces the cost for the developer. It also reduces the cost for the town in terms of maintenance. This is really about not making it by right because change is difficult. It takes time to make change. That's why we do these zoning bylaws, and that's why we've changed zoning bylaws in the past. This is really about where do we want to be in years to come, 10, 20, or 30 years from now. Do we want to be able to look back and say, we have permanently conserved open space in subdivisions? It does not change the number of subdivisions or the number of houses in subdivisions. It just says they'll be closer together. If you want to live in a subdivision that's built in what conventional standards, we've got lots of those already. We've got about 30 or 40 of them. So there'll be plenty of choices for what type of subdivision. This is about changing future subdivisions. All subdivisions use land. This is a way to permanently conserve land because it will still have the same number of houses, same number of subdivisions, it just permanently conserves some land. That's really the goal for this bylaw. If we don't change it now, then the opportunity is lost until we someday in the future say, hey, we really want to conserve some land. It's a way to protect the environment. It develops less land. That's really what we have to decide. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Yes.
Matt Neutra, 43 Prospect Street. So the bylaw as written also provides the boards and the selectmen agency in these conversations with developers. So it's not a binary good or bad. It provides a more robust conversation for the town to participate in conversations with developers. And so for that reason, I support it, and I think everyone should consider how much effort has gone into this plan to allow the town to have agency in conversations with developers.
Mary Ann? You were right in front of me, so of course I couldn't see you.
That's okay. Mary Ann Clancy, 58 North Main Street, Sherborn. I do appreciate all the effort, and I know they've been working on this for a long time. I appreciate all the effort that went into it. But I have to say, I do have some concerns. For those of you that don't know me, and I'm hoping to explain where I'm coming from on this, I have lived in the town of Sherborn virtually my entire life. I've lived on 100 acres of land, and I now live on a 1/4 acre of land. I have raised my son in town. I've been a homeowner without children. So I've experienced a lot of what Sherborn has had to offer in the past and what they have to offer today. I am a real estate agent in town, so I'd like to, and I was on the advisory board for 6 years. So I think I have a pretty good perspective on the town and what the town has been through and what we're going through. My concerns on this is relative to the fact that we are going to be giving up some land, and I think tax dollars, unless I'm misunderstanding that. I'm concerned about who's going to maintain this property. One thing I do know about Sherborn is that we are not lacking of conservation land, which is one of the reasons why our taxes are so high. And I'm also concerned about what people are looking for when they're coming to Sherborn right now. You know, 10 years ago, this might have been something that people coming to Sherborn would be looking for. Today, I'm actually seeing, and I know this is relative to COVID, but I think we need to see where that's taking us. People want space. They want land. They want to own some land around themselves, and they want some privacy. It's not a terrible idea, but that's it. And I'm not mad. I'm running because I have no plan.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I think I saw Chris.
Christine Cooney, 55 Maple
Put your
Street.
mic down.
Oops, sorry.
Thank you.
Christine Cooney, 55 Maple Street. First of all, with the open space that's preserved, there's, I think in the article, there's 4 different ways it can be held, but it can just be held by the homeowners association. Is that correct? As private property. Yes. Is there any impediment for any future expansion or, on that property? May I answer?
Sure.
Yes, no matter who owns the land, it will be under permanent conservation restriction. Okay. So it can never be developed in the future at all. Okay, and then I'm not sure, I think this is pertinent to the amendment, but basically, why are we turning it on its head and having the former not require a special permit? And switching who needs a special permit. Is there any legal impediment to having both types of development require a special permit?
No, there's not.
So it's basically just to really encourage this open space that you're making it. I would just suggest that I don't see any reason why they shouldn't both have special permits where the planning board would consider all the aspects and the environmental impacts of it.
I'm not sure if that was a question. Are you saying that both conventional subdivisions and open space should be by right?
No, by special permit. Is there any legal impediment?
We cannot do that by state law. We have to allow a by right path to subdivision development.
Okay.
So it's a choice.
That was my question. Okay, thank you.
Are there any further yes? Wasim?
Wasim Wasaleh, 5 Peckham Hill Road.
Can you put the mic up a little bit so we can hear you? Thank you, Wasim.
Wasim Wasaleh, 5 Peckham Hill Road. So my concern with this article is that 40% of the original size lot will now be allowed for the development. So let's say we are in 1 acre zoning. Now we're going to have houses on 0.4 acres. Now, I live in a subdivision, and Great Rock and Peckham Hill Road, and the other day I just looked at Google Map to see, okay, how does it look from the top? And guess what? It's a lot of trees between the houses. Now, my concern is you take that, you make it smaller, 0.4, no, 40% essentially, you'll still have houses. We still need to have space for the septic, the driveways, and guess what? All the trees in that neighborhood will disappear. They'll be in the back, but in the neighborhood, they'll disappear. Now, we have a wonderful neighborhood where people can walk, kids can bike, and all of that, and it looks really nice. And, my concern is that's going to go away. Yes, there is open space in the back, and if our desire is to protect open space, let's go about it the direct way. Let's go buy the land and do it the direct way. Let's not reduce our tax revenue. There's no argument that we can make that will say that the same house put on 40% is going to be the same value as the same house on 1 acre. I think the revenue is going to decrease, undoubtedly. Yes.
May I respond?
Are you through? Wait, are you through, Wessie?
Let's see. Did I get everything here? I think that's it. Yes, thank you.
Thanks. Marion?
Yeah, there are 2 points there. I'd like to respond to both. One, the size of the lot in most of town would be almost an acre. We did a comparison of average valuations, say in a 1 acre subdivision like Ivy Lane and a 2 acre subdivision like Parks Drive, and the average valuation is actually higher on Ivy Lane. The houses are similar. It's a matter of how it's designed. The houses would not be smaller necessarily. In most of these subdivisions, they're of the same size as conventional. And they tend to be spaced on the land in such a way that there is space between houses. That is, this is not a cluster subdivision in the sense that you hear about clusters where it's like smaller houses very close together. And the houses and the developed area can be placed anywhere on the land that's best, not necessarily clustered around the road. So as far as valuation goes, there are lots of anecdotal worries about valuation, but in fact, there have been academic studies comparing large areas of open space subdivision with conventional subdivision, and every one of them shows greater valuation of homes in an open space subdivision, and in fact, greater valuation of the entire development because the houses have access to permanently protected open space. And I think the real estate people in the crowd will probably agree that houses are easier to sell if they have access to town forest or protected open space. So valuations, in fact, in spite of the fears, turn out to be uniformly higher in these subdivisions.
Thank you, Marion. I saw someone down back there. Did you have your card up? Oh, okay. Yes. Yes, sorry, yes. I can't tell who's who with the masks.
Sarah Raggy, 17 Abbey Road. I guess my concern with this is that open space doesn't stay open space. I know from owning 4.5 acres myself, and it takes management. And so that piece of the puzzle I can't put it together, and then now I live in a condo situation so that I know managing space takes, if it's common space, it takes a majority of people to be in agreement. So it's just a piece of how does that work for taking a vast piece, 60% of the property that's in development, and having everyone agree on how that's going to unfold. Thank you.
Marion?
It's written into the bylaws, Sarah. I understand your concern. There are elements of management in it. Management may be not great. I mean, our town forests behind us don't require a lot of work. They can be left in a natural state. You can manage trails. There are management options in there that are written into the bylaw.
Are there any other comments or questions? Yes. Mr. Blaney.
Charlie Blaney, 11 Hollis Street. If this is passed as written, is there going to be any impact or any encouragement for 40Bs to increase?
Marion?
Yes. The answer is no. This has no impact on 40Bs. If a developer is going to do a 40B, this bylaw has no impact on it at all.
Thank you.
It only has impact on a developer who has a piece of property and wants to build a subdivision.
Addie Mae?
So Addie Mae Weiss, as a member of the planning board, this is something that we've been working on more than the 4 years that I've been part of planning board. And first off, we have conventional subdivisions by right in our town. And yet we've been lucky. We really have not had, lucky's not the right word, but there haven't been, the last subdivision was in the late 80s, built in our town. So this will not drastically change the way Sherborn looks, whether it's by right or by special permit. We just don't have a ton of subdivisions. But we are looking ahead, saying we have a lot of open space that is privately held. And we are trying to think of what, if all of a sudden all of that was built out, as it is in neighboring towns, how would we continue to maintain the feel of what we think of as Sherborn with trails and open space and connectivity? And we also know a lot of people do like to have community where kids have sidewalks and kids are able to be a little bit closer. This is not cluster zone, this is not cluster housing. We've looked at a lot of examples. The houses are bigger. If you have 2 acres or if you have 1 acre, as Marion had pointed out, the houses on Ivy Lane have all done very well. There's very sought after. People enjoy, there's woods, there's privacy. Essentially, this type of feel would be allowed, and it allows some flexibility in how it's laid out. And a lot of work has been done to work with conservation, work with Board of Health, to think of how creative options could be done while preserving the regulations that we have.
Thank you. Nancy?
Nancy Hess, 64 South Main Street. First of all, I have the deepest respect for John and his committee, but I always get a little nervous when somebody talks about what's best for a large number of people, because what's best for one is not always best for others. Without putting anybody on the spot, I would like to hear what the dissenting vote was about on the Board of Selectmen, if someone's willing to speak to that.
Someone from the Minority Report wish to speak? Natalie?
I think she was asking for the dissenter from the select board.
I'm sorry. Well, first of all, the select board has not voted on this amendment. So remember, it's the amendment that is on the floor now. So I think, Robert? When the main article is voted, we'll ask for the, you have voted on that, Eric.
Yeah, I gave a report earlier. I can give it again. We basically voted 4 in favor, 1 opposed to the article just as written. There was another amendment that came in about the number of total lots cannot exceed the number of lots you're doing on a traditional subdivision, and that was 401.
Okay, okay. Robert?
Yeah, I would like to hear from one of the members of the advisory committee who wrote the minority report.
Okay, no, we can do that when we vote the original article. We're dealing with the amendment right now. All right. Chris, is your thing on the amendment? Yeah.
I'm sorry, I get confused with these things, but I know we're talking about the amendment right now, but there was also an amendment to the article itself, right, that was originally read, about not allowing any more intense development than would be under a conventional.
And that was not an amendment for today. That is an amendment that was voted by the advisory committee and incorporated into the original main motion.
Into the original, it's in the article then?
It
that
is,
amendment.
well,
Oh.
it's not in the article, but it's in the motion for the article, the original main motion.
Is that written in the warrant?
It will be, it is not written in the warrant.
Right, it was read.
It was read.
It was read, I understand.
And it will be put actually up on the screen when we get to the main motion.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, Robert, one more. One more.
I will read a part of the minority report. It says,
Oh, Robert, that's out of order right now.
no, but it says on equal footing. That is relevant to this amendment.
Robert, we're voting on the amendment now. Okay?
And the minority report recommends the amendment.
Marion, back.
Yes.
Just vote it.
Just, okay. I'm going to stop debate right now on this amendment, and we will vote the amendment. Although the article itself must pass by 2/3, the amendment would need only a majority vote to pass. Yeah, can we just have a blank screen up here now, please? Okay, thank you. So this is the amendment, and I will read the amendment. Amend section 4.5.3 by removing 4.5.3C and renumbering section D to be section C with the friendly amendment of replacing the wording "a preferred alternative" with "an alternative," and by deleting section 4.5.3.c. Right? So we have had that amendment moved, and we have, I believe, a long time ago, had that amendment seconded. Right? So remember, this is a majority vote on the amendment alone. All in favor of the amendment, please raise your cards. All right. All opposed to the amendment, please raise your cards. The amendment fails. We move now to the main motion, which has been made and seconded. And Mr. Johnson has given the selectmen's report on that. So 2/3 vote on this. All in favor of the main motion on Article 20, please raise your cards. All opposed, please raise your cards. I'm I'm going to ask the tellers to count, just because this is a 2/3 vote. So those who are voting in favor of the main motion, please raise your cards.
Go get it. Yep, no, but you don't know who left. You don't know who left. It's irrelevant. It's people.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not going to be. I'm afraid it's not going to be. It's not going to be reflective.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they're signing people out for that thing. Right near the counter. Can do the math. It's gonna carry. It looks like it's gonna carry. It was smart. I think you did the right thing. I would have done the same thing. Just to get that good, you could say after. They're ready.
We're good? Okay, all opposed, please
No,
raise
you
your
gotta get
card.
the numbers.
No,
You gotta get the
sorry,
numbers.
no. I thought you said you were done. Oh, I'm sorry. Would you please hold your cards up higher? I thought she was saying she was done. This is 4. This is in favor of the main motion. Yes. I'm sorry, we can't hear.
I'm right up against the mic.
Point the mic toward you.
You deferred discussion of the minority report until this proposal, and now you don't have discussion of it.
No report. It's printed in the warrant. It's printed right in the warrant. It's right in the booklet.
All right, although I did say it. Should I?
Up to you.
At some point, you have to have
Right.
discussion of the minority report
All right.
before we vote. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. All right. All right. All right. So if there is, all right, I apologize. And I would ask for further discussion on the main motion. And I will start with asking a member of the minority report to speak?
Natalie Weir, 26 Stopping Brick Road. All the minority report issues have basically already been brought up and addressed during the other discussion. It was the minority report, they were just concerned mostly about unintended consequences of this. These are relatively new types of developments, and the market demand seems to be high, but we don't know if that's going to stay that way and what happens in the future. And the open space that's with these developments aren't necessarily open to the public unless the owners decide to do that. So that was some of the thoughts that the minority people had.
Okay. All right. Is there any further discussion on the main motion? Robert?
I would like to read one sentence from the minority report. Given these risks, we believe it would be more prudent to craft our subdivision bylaws in such a way that open space and conventional development are on equal footing so that the town can maintain maximum flexibility as market conditions develop.
Thank you. Any other comment now? Yes, Chris.
Cooney, 55 Maple Street. Maybe I'm the only person who's confused all the time, but when we're voting on the main motion, that's Article 20, correct?
That's correct.
And on the screen, there was an amendment to Article 20, and it's not written in our pamphlets, and that's what I think, if that could be on the screen before we vote on the main motion, because I think that's very important, because it says it can't be more intensely developed than under, conventional. Right. So I just want to make sure that that's
okay.
included.
If Jordan can put up that slide, please, that would be great. All right. So this amendment was not offered today. It was voted from the floor. It was voted to be included in the main motion made today by the advisory committee, and it was done so. And the language of that sentence that was added is displayed behind me on the screen. It is part of the main motion. It does not appear in the advisory report. It is part of the main motion. The advisory committee voted to include it in its main motion. Yes, Marion.
Just so people understand what this motion is, simply it makes sure there's no loophole in the bylaw by which a developer could squeeze more homes in an open space subdivision that would have been in a conventional subdivision. This just spells out that control so that that cannot happen.
All right. Thank you. All right. And Addie May. What?
Just like any bylaw, this can be changed a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 3 years from now. Bylaws can be changed. We would come to town meeting and make the amendment. If we don't start with something being by special permit and something being by right, then we won't have any way to incentivize anything. So we've got to start somewhere.
All right. Thank you. One more person wants to
Madam Moderator?
comment.
All right, thanks. Over here.
Oh, sorry.
More speaking as a citizen. I just moved to go to ballot voting. It just seemed confusing.
Okay, the question has been called, and so there'll be no further discussion.
Well, I'm moving that we actually use the ballot. I don't know what it takes to use these.
50 voters.
Okay.
Mr. Johnson has requested a paper ballot.
I second it.
That requires 50 voters to stand in support of that. Do we have that? Do we have 50 voters to please stand in support of that? All right, the tellers want to take account, it looks like 50 to me, but I'm going to say it's good enough. Let's not spend any more time here. I do not, but the tellers will have a count of votes present when they return the vote to me. Yes. Please, yes, using your pink ballot, this would be ballot 1. Ballot 1. Please tear off either yes or no and put it into the jar that the tellers come around with.
Mary,
Yes.
can you ask people not to fold their ballots?
yes.
Because it's going to be faster to...
And there has been a request to please not fold whatever you put in there, just put it in so that the tellers don't have to deal with that. Thank you. We are voting on Article 20's main amendment. Main motion, sorry.
Main motion with
Sorry. Main motion including the language that was included. If you can put that up here again, that'd be great. That, including that sentence.
All right, start collecting.
Come on, tellers, do it. Get moving.
Collect the ballots.
What are Libby and Abby doing?
There's just one?
Is George the only one who's...
Is there just one collector?
Oh, okay, no, there they go.
There we go.
Yeah. My arm was getting tired.
I will vote, George. I don't vote except on a secret ballot.
Good morning, Esther.
Thank you, Abby. Make sure you get them.
Yes. I did. Yes, thank you. Just an announcement that we are all voting now. There is no yes vote now and no vote later. You're voting, everybody, yes or no, is voting, I voted. Everyone voting now, you're just voting by putting yes or no. Yeah. Is there anyone whose ballot has not been collected? Please raise your hand if that is the case. Okay.
Did you want them to bring the vote up to you?
Yes,
Okay.
that would be great.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
It's never straightforward. You plan for every contingency, and
I
then
jinxed it too, Mary. I texted my wife saying this is moving along quick.
but right before you cut it off, my wife was going to call the question.
So we had 108 check-in, and that it was to 104, so we're good on the number.
Okay. So, $24 out of 80.
Hold on. It's 104.
All
So
right.
it's 76.9%, 80 into 104.
Okay. So it passes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right, we had, if I could have your attention, we had 104 ballots cast. The vote was 80 yes votes, 24 no votes. The motion passes by 2/3.
Yay.
Yes. 108. 108 people checked in. There were 104 ballots cast. 80 yes, 24 no. All right, moving on. Article 21. This would be slide 46, Jordan. Amend ZBL section 4.9, inclusionary zoning provisions.
Madam Moderator,
Yes, Mr. Sy.
I move favorable action and that the town vote to amend the zoning bylaws by adding section 4.9, affordable housing, as printed in the warrant for the purpose of increasing the supply of affordable housing in Sherborn.
I second the motion.
I believe we have a presentation for this, John. This would be starting slide 47.
All right, thank you. Massachusetts badly needs moderate and low income.
John, could I just interrupt you for 1 minute to give the planning board?
Sorry?
No, for you to give the planning board report.
I'll start again. John Higley, Chairman of the Planning Board, 14 Saddlebrook Road. The Planning Board held a hearing and voted unanimously in favor of this article. So now I'll begin. Massachusetts badly needs moderate and low-income housing, so they passed Mass General Law 40B to give incentives to developers to build affordable housing. It also gives incentives to communities that when they reach 10% affordable housing, they can control and if they want, reject 40B proposals that don't fit their housing plan. Sherborn has a housing plan and wants to add affordable housing, and this bylaw gives Sherborn a way so that when we get to 10% affordable housing, we'll be able to stay above 10% and in control. It requires all new developments of 2 or more houses to either build or help fund affordable housing. It also requires any affordable housing that is built has to meet state standards and remain affordable. Sherborn has 34 affordable homes now, and when the 3 current 40B projects are completed, we'll be at 3.7% affordable housing units. Two projects on Coolidge Street could add enough affordable homes so that we'll be over 10% with a little room for variation of the forecast. If we add this bylaw now, then as market rate homes are built, we'll be able to add enough affordable housing to keep us over 10% for a long time. Let's take a look at how it works. Any development of 2 or more houses has to contribute to affordable housing. The developer that wants to build 2 to 5 homes can make a payment in lieu of building. For developments of 6 or more homes, the developer is required to add 15% more affordable homes. If that 15% is a fraction of a half or larger, then the required number is rounded up, and if it's less than a half, then a payment in lieu to the housing trust is required. The bylaw gives the developers some options. The developers can build affordable housing on-site or off-site, or make a payment in lieu to the housing trust. Whether new, rehab, or multifamily, affordable housing has to be consistent with the other homes in the neighborhood, and they all have to comply with Sherborn's local bylaws, Board of Health, Conservation, and Planning Board rules and regulations. Here's an example. So here the developer wants to build 10 market rate units. The bylaw requires that the market rate units be multiplied by 15% to get that number. So in this example, 1.5 affordable units are required, and that's a fraction that gets rounded up to 2 affordable units. So if the market rates, in this example, the market rates units are 850,000 and the affordable are 250,000, the actual prices are determined in the bylaw. It specifies how those prices are determined. The payment option is the difference between the market rate and the affordable, which in this case is $600,000. So the developer can either build 2 affordable units or pay $1.2 million for the 2, or build 1 and pay for 1. It's the same size for any development of 6 or more. The bylaw defines a slightly different formula for the developments of 2 to 5 homes, but it comes up with a proportional payment in lieu fee. So will this added cost of affordable housing push a developer to 40B? Well, if we're in safe harbor, then 40B won't be an option. 40B developers want to build high-density housing so that they can build without being controlled by our local rules and regulations. We have several 40B developments now without inclusionary zoning. If the bylaw allows a developer to build or refurbish affordable housing off-site, and if they can't do that with a 40B, they can make a payment in lieu, and they can't do that with a 40B. So this may seem expensive for the developer. $600,000 is about what it costs to buy or build an affordable home. And this allows affordable housing to be built without increasing our taxes or having other funding mechanisms. A Cityscape paper published in 2017 said, inclusionary zone is a popular way to shift the funding to the developer and recommends increased density like this does. This allows increased density with a duplex. A 2010 Rappaport Institute paper studied 99 communities in Metro Boston that have already added affordable housing and said 1/3 use mandatory inclusionary zoning, like this bylaw, about 1/3 use voluntary incentive zoning, and about 1/3 use both. The developer can find building or refurbishing off-site may save them a lot of money. So how will this change Sherborn? Well, this will protect Sherborn from unwanted change. We want to add affordable housing that fits our plan. This is a way to fund it so that we can stay in safe harbor. It doesn't apply to tear downs or rebuilds. It doesn't apply to a new single house construction. It's a way to pay for what is required by market rate housing construction without raising our taxes. This is a way to keep us over 10% in control. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay. We have moved this, yes, and seconded. And so is there now discussion? Are there any questions or comments? Mr. Johnson?
Robert Johnson, 272 Western Avenue. I move to amend Article 21 in Section 4.9.c by replacing 15% with 10%, and in Section 4.9.d.3.b, Example A, replacing 10 housing units with 15 housing units, and 15% with 10%. And in Section 4.9.d.3.b, Example B, replacing 40 housing units with 60 housing units and 15% with 10%.
Is there a second for, no, we don't need a second. Pardon me? Yes, is there a second on this amendment? All right, thank you. All right, is there discussion on this amendment? Do I see any? Okay, great, thanks. Is there discussion, Chris?
Not discussion, so I don't know if I'm in order. I'd just like to know if Mr. Johnson would explain the reason for the amendment that he's proposing. I had the same question, why not make it 15? I mean, just question, what the percentages are. And also, I guess it was stated that this has been put into effect in other towns, and I'm just kind of interested as whether there have been legal challenges by developers, because it seems like, kind of a tax that I just wondered but if it has been implemented, as you said, I guess that takes care of that question. But
Robert, do you want to give your explanation for your amendment?
I greatly doubt that other towns have exceeded the state 10%. I know of no other towns that have done that. There may be some, but I don't know of them. Does that answer? Okay. I have a statement.
Sure.
Okay. This amendment will bring the article into agreement with the state-mandated 10% requirement. We are fortunate in that it looks likely that with the developments on Coolidge Street, we will be able to satisfy the state-mandated 10% affordable housing requirement. Then we, as a town, will be able to control our own destiny without the threat of 40Bs. However, there is no need to exceed the 10%. Neither the legislature nor the governor has shown the slightest interest in increasing the percentage to 15%. The Coolidge Street developments will have a significant impact on the character of Sherborn. There is no need to increase that impact. This amendment will keep Sherborn meeting the state requirements and minimize the negative impacts on our community. Please vote for this amendment to keep our property values at a maximum and our taxes at a minimum. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comment? Matt, are you raising? Okay. Anyone else? Any other comment? Okay.
Can I respond?
Yes, sure, John. I'm sorry.
Sure. There are several towns in Massachusetts, several communities in Massachusetts that have exceeded 10%, and they work to stay above 10%. Lincoln is a great example, for instance, where they've been above 10%, and then they fell down, so they had to build affordable housing. We do not have Community Preservation Act funding. A lot of towns deal with affordable housing and help fund it using Community Preservation Act funding. We do not have that advantage. So this is a way so that when we get to 10%, this will mean we'll stay above 10%. The reason for 15% is because it does not apply to single house construction, which we know we have a lot of, right? There's a lot of houses that are built on a lot, not in a development, on an existing road. Those houses continue to be built without any payment to that. But each one of those houses adds to our total market rate number of homes, so we have to fund that. We have to, if we want to stay above 10%, if we don't pass this, then we'll have to find some other way to add affordable homes in order to stay above 10%. It is a safe harbor. If we do not, then we're open to very large developments that maybe don't fit our plan, that we don't want. So what we want to do is get under control. So this is 15% because it allows us to include the impact of those single house developments, which we see a lot of. Some of you may have a single lot that you want to partition off or you own and you want to develop it. This allows you to go ahead and do that. But for a developer that comes in and buys a large lot, then we want them to fund the affordable housing that we don't have those Community Preservation Acts to fund. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Comment?
Had a question. Christine Collins, 35 Ivy Lane. Would this only apply to housing that's developed after we've achieved the 10%, or can it be applied to the 40B projects that are currently under consideration but have not yet been approved?
If we pass this, then this would be in effect once the Attorney General has approved it. So it would be in effect now, so that any development of 2 or more would be impacted.
Thank you.
Any other comment? All right, Robert, you have something new to add. Robert?
The statement was previously made by the proposer that this would exceed the 10% that's required and have some access, and that it would cover us for the foreseeable future. And I agree with that. there are approximately 1,500 houses in Sherborn. And the number of houses, new houses that were built last year were 3. So new houses are not going to have an impact on this. And there is no reason to exceed the state mandated 20%. And there's no evidence that I've heard yet that any other community has required a 15%. So let's minimize the impact on Sherborn and vote for this amendment to keep it at the state mandated 10%. Thank you.
Do you want to respond?
Yeah, a response is that a lot of towns, as I mentioned, at least 2/3 in the metropolitan Boston area, at least 2/3 have incentive zoning as part of their affordable housing plan. So incentive zoning usually is adding density. So we don't have that. Incentive zoning could also be the town helps fund the affordable housing. And we are not in a position where we want to raise our taxes to help fund affordable housing. That's why this is a bigger cost to the developer than most towns in the metropolitan Boston area, because we don't want to raise our taxes. We have very high taxes now, and we don't and we don't have Community Preservation Act and other funding mechanisms.
Thank you. Are there any new comments? Eric, you gave the select board?
Sure, yeah. The select board voted 5-0 unanimously to support this article.
Okay. So the article has been moved and seconded. The amendment has been moved and seconded. And although the main motion has to pass by 2/3, the amendment only has to pass by a majority. So this will be a majority vote. And all in favor of the amendment, please raise your cards now. All opposed to the amendment, please raise your cards. The amendment fails. All right, we move now to the main motion, and I'm looking for discussion on the main motion. Yes.
Neil Kessler, 43 Page Farm Road. While I have disagreed with some in town about the Coolidge Street projects because of their size, I think this article is very important. Affordable housing has been mandated by the state since 1969, and Sherborn has been very slow to take any actions that would lead to real progress on it. And I think this is going to be something that will inoculate us, that will actually prevent large projects like on Coolidge Street or elsewhere, which I don't think are good for the town. And it will help keep us in front of that wave of growing housing and the need for 10% of that to be affordable. I just think it's smart, it's well thought out, and I think we should favor it. Thank you.
Is there any other comment? Okay, we will take the vote now. Remember, this must be a 2/3 vote in order to pass. If you are in favor of the main motion, please raise your cards now. Okay. If you are opposed, please raise your cards now. All right, I am calling that the motion has passed by 2/3. Article 22, Coolidge Crossing. Mr.
Madam
Farr.
Moderator, I move favorable action and that the town vote to authorize the Select Board to grant a non-exclusive easement for water and sewer purposes in, on, over, under, and along portions of the public right-of-way of Coolidge Street, Speen Street, and Kendall Avenue for the purpose of constructing, laying, installing, operating, maintaining, inspecting, repairing, replacing, altering, relocating, extending, or removing water and sewer lines, manholes, pipes, equipment, and related appurtenances thereto, in order to serve developments at 104 Coolidge Street and 84 Coolidge Street, on such terms and conditions as the Select Board may determine.
I second the motion.
All right. Is there discussion? Mr. Morrow?
George Morrill, 4 Parks Drive, also a member of the Select Board who proposed this warrant article. This article simply gives the Select Board the right to grant this easement if we move forward with the Coolidge Street development and negotiate an IMA with neighboring towns for water and sewer. Because if we do that, the goal is that the private developer would own those lines for the exclusive use of those properties, so the town wouldn't have the cost of maintaining those lines, and the neighboring towns don't want to own the lines that run through Sherborn as well. So this easement would be necessary for them to maintain their own lines. There's been questions about, can this run to other properties, all these things. That's going to be negotiated in the IMA, and we have been given, our town council has assured that we can limit this. It will be limited to these properties only unless the IMA is ever renegotiated, which this gives exclusive right to those properties only. I know there's been some discussion that it could be expanded, but that's not true. That's really the main point of this. It allows us to negotiate this if the Coolidge Street project moves forward once they apply with the state and with the ZBA. Thank you.
Chris?
Christine Cooney, 55 Maple Street. This is a question about the...
Can you speak a little louder?
I'm sorry, 55 Maple Street. I heard the word non-inclusive in there. Can you explain in the article as read what the non-exclusive does refer to if we're voting on it being non-exclusive, and it sounded like that was something that would be negotiated or could be negotiated.
She's asking what the non-exclusive?
She's asking what is meant by non-exclusive.
So the non-exclusive is because it obviously is going to be subject to the discussion in the IMA, so it's not, they're not giving away the right completely.
I'm just asking if
But other citizens or butters or residents will not have the right to access a water line if it's agreed to through the IMA.
If we vote today, we're saying we're voting for something that will be non-exclusive, is that correct? So it will not be able to exclude other people to attend. That's
No.
not right. Okay, thank you.
It's not correct.
Okay. Is there any further, yes?
Neil Kessler, 43 Page Farm Road. I just wanted to say that that I think actually this article is just as important as Article 20 that we were talking about before in terms of the future of the town and how we approach things. And while we've been assured that it will be negotiated so that there's all of this exclusivity, I don't actually think that's true. Assurances in December of 2017 were that we would have an 88-unit affordable housing 40B at 84 Coolidge Street, and now it's up at 120 units. That's 50% bigger. We don't know how many school-age kids that's going to bring. Nobody's found out about that. And I just think that approving this now just puts the cart before the horse. We don't know very much about this project. We don't have any negotiated things in place. And I just think it's foolish for authorizing infrastructure, which is a key piece to getting 187 new units of housing into our town. I think we can do affordable housing on a smaller scale. I think it's too big, and I think we should find out more about school-age kids, tax impacts, and everything else before we vote on allowing infrastructure to go forward. Thank you.
George?
Sorry, this mic. Just to address some of Neil's concerns, this development, we actually do know a lot about this development because the select board voted unanimously on Thursday night to support this project that's moving forward with the application with the state. We've been talking about it since December of 2017. It's not a new idea. It's gone up to 120 units because that would put us over our 10%. And when you talk about we don't know the amount of school-age children, the 120 units includes 42 units of one-bedroom units. I really don't think there's going to be a lot of children in those. These 62 of the units are going to be two-bedroom units, and there's only 12 that are going to be three-bedroom units. So that's a good indication that this is geared towards the rental units will be geared. And the other development that you also included in your comment, that 63 units are age-restricted over 55, where there'll be very few students as well. Thank you.
Yes.
Neil Kessler, 43 Page Farm. I just wanted to respond. First of all, we still don't know how many kids. I understand we know how big the apartments are. The other thing is I'm 53 years old and my kids are 7 and 9. So now everybody knows how old I am, and I have 2 school-age kids in town. Thank you.
Mr. Young?
I just wanted to make 2 very quick points. I want to reiterate what George said. The increase in the size helps us with the SHI. It gets us over the 10%. Secondly, the underlying project at one of the most heavily attended annual town meetings in December of 2017 was supported by the voters in this town, 87% to 13%. So there's overwhelming support for this project. This easement allows us to use sewer and water connections to drastically reduce the impact on the aquifer, and it's a huge improvement. This easement is a critical piece to that. So I would urge everyone to support the article.
Thank you. Chris, is this something new?
Just to point out that it seems to give the option to the select board to decide whether it's going to be non-exclusive or exclusive. And I was very much in favor of the Coolidge Crossing project and voted for it, but I just think, and I wouldn't want this to hold it up, but I guess maybe a question is, if this doesn't pass today, does that, is that going to mean that Coolidge Crossing isn't going to be able to go forward? And I know there were people in some of the hearings before that were very concerned about that if it's not exclusive, that there'll be sewer hookups and much more development possible, and people having a right to hook up to it in that area of town. And if anyone could comment to those concerns, I appreciate it.
George?
As Darren said, the negotiation with the IMA will make it very clear, and it's up to us as a select board to make sure that there are that it will not be allowed to be hooked up to other properties. As a select board, we've made it very clear that that is what we're going to negotiate with these towns and with the developer, because it'll be a tri-party agreement between the towns and the developer. So it will be exclusive to these properties.
John Higley has something.
If you wish to, it will need to be a formal amendment. Yes, you do.
Darren.
What's that?
In the meantime, Carol?
Carol McGarry, 262 Western Avenue. My question is just...
Can you either raise the mic or step a little closer to it?
Yes. Yeah. My question is, if this passes, it would give pretty much, unlimited water and sewage capacity, or there may be some limits, but much higher than if you dug a well and did septic on site. Do we know what the upper limit is of the number of units? I've actually walked that land because I'm on Conservation Commission, so I know there's some wetlands, but not a lot to limit that development. Is there, like, what's the maximum number of dwellings that at that point could be built on that land?
Their submission to the state that was at our meeting last Thursday night is for 120 units on that parcel. And this will also be for the Pulte parcel that they have 67 units of over 55 development. There's two different developments on Coolidge Street.
Okay, but that wasn't my question, because I know that developers will submit something and then revise it. So my question is there a maximum?
Well, what they applied for with the state is 120 units.
I understand, but could that be
Well, if you look at
revised?
this, if you look at the site plan that they submitted to us, it's limited by conservation. So as you know from the Conservation Commission, they're not going to be able to build on the portion. I think they're maximizing what they have on the site with the 120 units is my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
John?
John Higley, 14 Saddlebrook Road, Chairman of the Planning Board. Environmentally, this project uses, as it's been mentioned, this project uses water from another town and sewer from another town. So environmentally, it has no impact on our environment compared to, particularly when you compare it to the alternative, like several smaller 40Bs around town, several smaller affordable homes, housing developments around town that we don't have money to fund. So this takes away the environmental impact. And the other thing is, this is being discussed in a way so that it's a friendly relationship. If it was an adverse relationship, we'd have less control as a 40B development. It will go through the zoning board of appeals as a process, but this is being proposed in a friendly way, and the 120 unit is very much to our advantage in getting over 10% in a way that we can stay above 10%. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim?
Jim Campbell, 212 Farm Road. I call the question.
Thank you. All right. So this is, well, just a moment. We had an amendment. Okay. Are you?
It wasn't.
Chris? Yes.
Okay, but my proposal is just to change the word from non-exclusive to exclusive. Okay, all right, thank you.
The reason for the non-exclusive is it allows the board the flexibility and the ability to go now negotiate who can use that through the IMA. If it was exclusive, it would be limited to a person or an entity where the board wouldn't have anything they'd be able to negotiate. This gives them the authority now to set the terms of who can use it through the IMA, and nobody other than who the board grants that non-exclusive easement to in the IMA will be able to use it. There's no automatic right for any citizen or any abutter to tap into that line.
Okay, I guess it just, you know, rather than having it open-ended to have the select board decide at a future time why it couldn't be exclusive to 40 Coolidge Street or to the Coolidge Street project.
So are you offering your amendment or not?
Well, I guess not, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the question has been called, and this is a majority vote. All right, all in favor, please raise your cards. All right. All opposed, motion passes. Article 23, Citizens Petition Pine Hill Elementary Start Times Traffic Safety Study.
Madam Moderator,
Yes, Mr. Sy.
the Sherborn Advisory Committee has been informed by the primary petitioner that they wish not to present for this article and in fact wish to not move forward with this article. Therefore, I move that no action be taken on this article.
I second the motion of no action.
All right. Is there any comment? Okay, seeing none. All in favor, please raise your cards. This is of the no action motion. All opposed, please raise your cards. Motion passes unanimously. I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, you can vote with your feet. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Moderator.